I'm gonna take you up by the top to everybody. It's your brother Preacher Moss, coming to you live from Scotland. Let me apologize in advance. Last week I got caught up with the time zone. I misread the time, so shout out to Satana for posting the episode. Apologies again to everybody. That's number one. Number two is currently I'm in Glasgow, Scotland. And the reason I'm going ahead and do this pre-tape is two reasons. One, I want you guys to have some fresh content. And two, with the uncertainty of when I finish on stage and the time zone, which is now 4 hours ahead until we do daylight savings time next week in the States, it messes up things. So I didn't want to get in a situation where I try to do something live and then I'm not able to be where I need to be. Okay. That's number one. So that's, again, apologies for that. Our subject matter today is, what about genocide in Sudan? Now people go, Preach, what do you mean? Why are you talking about suicide in Sudan? Well, it's pretty much the reason why I talked about genocide in Gaza. Pretty much why I talked about genocide in the United States. You know, there's no break on the business and the marketplace of causing human oppression, of causing human suffering. Suffering has become something that should be on NASDAQ or the wall or the New York Stock Exchange, because that's what corporations are engaged in under the facade of non-charities in some space, under the facade of technology, under the facade of tourism in many regards. And I talk about Gaza, well, not Gaza, I'm talking about Sudan and the genocide in Sudan, because technically the genocide in Sudan actually started before, hear me now, it started before October 7th. And it gives you an understand how news cycles work. But my point in talking about Sudan right now is that they are at a crisis. And that crisis is happening right in front of our eyes. We just don't see it. That the powers that be, the people who want to be imperial powers, the people who want to be empires, now have taken out their talents and begun to throw them into places, hear me now, throw them into places whereby they feel, while nobody's looking, that they can have control. While nobody has the power or the numbers or the information to say this is a crime, you know, all of a sudden we are deceivably informed about the things going around us. That over and over and over again, we're going to have these pockets. And we've been on a stage for a very long time in the United States. We've been on the stage where people look at the United States from Scotland and places abroad, and they look at us and they say, you know, the United States has a certain level of barbarism whereby the people tolerate it, whether it be police brutality, whether it be going all the way back to slavery, that there's a history of barbarism that people have looked at the United States and go, they can do it and they're still number one. They can still be the most powerful country in the world. And the United States has doubled down on that thing. MAGA, brothers and sisters, is not about make America great again. MAGA is about making America blind again. So as I'm sitting here talking about one of the greatest genocides that's ever happened, aside from Gaza, because Gaza's had numerous genocides. Hear me now, numerous genocides. How many people can survive numerous genocides? Well, this is my point. And this is a shout out to the resilience of the people in Sudan, the resilience of the people in Congo, the resilience of the people in Gaza, the resilience of the people who just simply say, I am a human being, I have a right to exist, and they resist. So we're going to talk about it. Don't move. I'm not going to keep it too long. This is the shout out show with Preacher Mars, coming to you live from Scotland. All right, before I get into the meat of this discussion, let me give a shout out to everybody, all my shout out show family, Sister Ree, uh, Brother Bilal, Sister Sonia, Dalton, Salahuddin, JT, my main man Eric Carter, my main man Jabril Howell, Mark Kennedy. We got all kind of people up on the shout out show. Sister Satana, thank you again. We're gonna give a shout out to Aunt Maxine, B. Kate, Esquire, Mary Moss. We got everybody. I'm gonna give a shout out to everybody. But this show is really about let's just have a conscience about what's going on. Let me give you a history. Not so much a history, but I like to give comparison studies. Okay, comparison studies. When we talk about these regimes and genocide, um, and some of it's going to be uncomfortable. Some of it's going to be uncomfortable, but that's the nature of the game. Sometimes it is going to be uncomfortable. Let me tell you a common ingredient in any genocide that happens in the world. In any genocide that happens in the world. One is that it's militarized. That's one. And if it's militarized, two, guess what? It requires the military. What's going on in Sudan right now is basically it's a beef between two army people, two factions of the military. One paramilitary, and one is a war instrument of the country. They can't get it together. They couldn't merge armies, and as a result, they're fighting over north, south, and in the interstitial, we're talking about upwards of 150, conservatively 150 people killed. We're not talking about people being displaced. We're not talking about just all the things that happen in genocide that you never really see that have lasting negative impact. You talk about 5, 10, 15 years. People's lives are scarred, right? So you have the adjustment of military. That the military is not meant to protect the people, it's meant to control the people. Let me say it again. It's not meant to protect the people, it's meant to control the people. When you talk about a civil war, you're talking about interior decisions being made between military, generals, all this type of stuff. And this is not outside influence. I'm going to get to outside influence in a minute. But these are internally people who have power that has now been displaced or they're using it in a much, much maligned way. So here what you have in Sudan is a blueprint for what happened, in my estimation, in Gaza. So let's say the table was set. The table was set in April 2023 for what would happen October 7th, 2023. That a large scale, let me say this, a large scale civil war will break out. And the only difference between Gaza and Sudan is that Gaza doesn't have an army. They don't have, they have a group that we call Hamas that at this point in time, what is Hamas? Right? It's like, damn, anything could be Hamas if I say it. If I say it and I have the environment to do so, I can say it. Anybody who resists can't be Hamas. Anybody who has a difference of opinion can't be a terrorist. And so we have this scenario in Sudan, whereby the oppression of the people becomes the tool of war. Let me say it again. The oppression of the people becomes tools of war. Where have you heard that again? Where have you heard that? A civil war. You know when we started hearing about civil wars? Here in the United States. Again, the oppression of the people becomes a tool of war. Now, the thing between America, Gaza, and Sudan is that America has a problem. America has a problem that it can't fully oppress like it wants to. You know, the military, going back to Trump's first term, the military is being sized up and framed to be able to suppress the will of the people. Hear me now, to suppress the will of the people, not the violence of the people, not the criminal nature of the people, but the will of the people. And in Sudan and Gaza, where people cannot defend themselves, where you have no journalist integrity, freedom of information, freedom of information gets you killed. When you don't have that, now you have this very, very nasty but fertile breeding ground for what's going on now. That the RSF and the state government will continue to fight over little pieces of property. They are the international equivalent of Bloods and Crips in South Central in many regards. But the difference between Bloods and Crips, boy, and I'll say this, ideology. Ideology. Was it a flawed ideology? Yes. But they fought each other. They did not seek to oppress the will of the people around them. Hear me now. Red and blue had a clue. One of the largest problems with Sudan, and it's not going to get a lot of attention, because Sudan is a poor partner. Sudan is a poor country going back to the early 2000s. To be so resource rich, it's a poor country. Now let's talk about those resources. This war affords certain foreign countries to come in and get these resources at bottom basement prices, if they pay at all. In fact, the RSF, in many regards, is saying, look, take the resources, but give us arms. So the whole Middle East is involved in this. And I'm going to tell you this about oppression. I'm going to tell you about genocide. You know, it has incestuous relationships with oppression, crime, greed, and callousness. It's very incestuous. And they all get together all the time. This relationship, and there's no boundaries, there's no morals, there's no ethics. It just happens. And then it rolls out in the general public. And for us, it's difficult because we have a hands cuff because we're not at particular levels of power. We can't pull particular levels of power because in the United States, we're still believing in this thing called democracy, but we know that democracy does not work. That the will of the people is often overlooked. And as the United States is this bastion of quote unquote democracy and constitutional awareness and indoctrination, it doesn't work. And so when you flip it over to Sudan, they're not worried about democracy. They're not worried about democracy. They're not worried about constitution. They're worried about power. And the worst thing that you can do when you have power is to lose it. And I said, what about the genocide in Sudan? And that's important. But let me throw this out there to you. It's a bellwether for everybody here in the United States. It's a bellwether for everybody around the world. I mean, Scotland, you better watch your back, Scotland. Watch your back, UK. Watch your back, France, Paris, because you have these scenarios that are framing up whereby people are using the military to suppress the will of the people. Like I said, now they're not controlling riots. They're not controlling people who are breaking the law. They are literally trying to control people who what? Are questioning the law. If you go back to the 1950s and 60s, you know, the police were militarized against African Americans in the civil rights movement. I'm not telling you anything new. Malcolm told you, Honorable Elijah Muhammad told you, Muhammad Ali told you. And what was the recourse that they said? They said you have to stop looking at the people who oppress you to liberate you. It never works. In Sudan, this is a country of Sudanese people. These are not black and white relationships, right? These are not black and white relationships. This is a case study. These are Sudanese who are terrorizing other Sudanese. almost like the Hutus and the Tutsis back in the day. They're terrorizing. You say, what gives people, what gives people I want to say the latitude to act like that? You know what it is? Apathy. The number one thing we're exporting from the United States in terms of African nations, African nations, and even in Gaza, we are exporting a special type of apathy. And this apathy is different. Why? Because it's commoditized. Because if you don't give a damn, you can get paid. If you don't speak up, your bank account might raise up. If you don't say anything out of your mouth, you might get a raise. And then we've created this very despondent, very detached nature, if you will, whereby it's okay to look the other way. Do we have in our heart of hearts, if somebody kills my neighbor, that's just my neighbor. They won't kill me. If somebody sets my house on fire, it's just their house. My house, they set on fire, but we have apologists to say, well, he should have had his house set on fire. Then now we introduce the quotient of the absurd. So let me say this about the genocide in Gaza, the genocide in Sudan, and the genocide in the United States and the Congo. It's just that it's all absurd, unnecessary. Unnecessary. Not just unnecessary, but now it's scripted, it's orchestrated. What they're doing in Portland and what they're trying to do in Chicago and what they do in DC, suppress the will of the people. In the States, they can't do it because they got a problem. I didn't tell you what the problem is earlier. Maybe I did, maybe I'm being redundant. The problem in the United States is what's happening. They haven't been able to figure it out for 400 years. How to get rid of these black folks, get them up out of here. How do we move them? How do we despise these people, but we need them so much that they don't do a damn thing to contribute to this country, but somehow, if we take them out of the country, if we take them out of the space where real work has to be done, where technology is a lie, and it comes down to the fact that people have to put boots on the ground. And the buckets of water are carried by real people. The United States is not about that. Even now, brothers and sisters, even now, as I talk about the situation in the United States, there are parallels to what you're talking about going on in Sudan. Because now there's an indoctrination because we want people to submit, hear me now, to submit to this level of inferior government and this level of inferior interchange and exchange between human beings. I would say the only thing different between Israel and Gaza, Sudan, genocide, United States is when the military comes to the United States, guess what? They're not raping women and children yet. So let me be clear. I only have a couple minutes. I get ready for the show, but let me really be clear. The things that you see have been rehearsed. This is not a first time. It's rehearsed. And sadly, the technology, much of the technology we use today has just been elevated and advanced because you have to be able to spread this fear over a long scope, a huge spectrum, right? So that really, I don't know if you guys know, like when we talk about Israel, Israel is known as startup nation. The number one export is defense. Defense. Makes sense. In the middle of all these Arab countries, how do you defend yourself? One, you got the United States. Two, you got technology. These phones that we have, GPS, that technology ain't from around the way. Down the phone in and of itself, developed by black people. You already know that. But the technology of GPS tracking systems in the phone, that ain't black. Again, shout out for all the black people that come up with this technology that then people don't want to give them credit, and then they use it for other purposes other than what it should be used for. But let me stay on my point. If we're going to talk about Sudan, understand they've been in a civil war since April 2023. That's one. Struggle between two armies. Listen, between two armies. It's not even two ideologies. It's not even Democrats. These are people who are fighting just for power. They have no legislative agenda to speak of. Hear me now. They're not talking about building schools, educating the children, referendums on the poor. They're not talking about that. They're talking about owning or position themselves to have power. The reality is, if either one of these guys won in this particular situation, if either one of them won, it would have effective government. Because you can't have effective government if you put out to the people, if you don't follow the government, this could happen to you. Like I said, we are looking at repercussions of things that happened between, it started in 2019, right? 2019, and another person who's moved from power, who arrived in power, it was a coup, a military coup. So take note, in the United States, there are some loud voices. There are some loud voices, some proud people, some brave people who are saying, wait, we're not Sudan. Wait, we're not Israel. There's some people going, well, you should be. My point is, I want everybody, if you get a chance, I want everybody to actually spend some time looking at the conflict and the genocide in the Sudan. Just take the time to do your research and look at the parallels of what's going on in Sudan. We don't have two militaries. We have different branches of the military. You got the Army, you got the Marines, you got the Navy, you got the Air Force. Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force. You know, in Sudan, they have drones. But here in the United States, got four branches of government, four ways to suppress the will of the people. Let me say it again, suppress the will of the people. Your blueprint right now is Sudan, not so much Gaza, because there's been no ceasefire in Sudan. There's been no cease war in Sudan. Let me tell you why. Because this is Sudanese on Sudanese violence. The international crime, the people who say basically it's an international crime are basically saying, well, we can't say that, we don't know. But you have all the statistics, 150,000 people are killed in a conflict. You can't say this is a genocide. That's number one. Number two is you have reports of criminal behavior, of ethnic cleansing going on, and nobody's saying anything. You know, in the United States, we don't have ethnic cleansing. We don't do that. We blackball you. We don't have ethnic cleansing. We have cultural cleansing. We cancel you. There's different ways to get canceled. You know, people think, oh, you know, they take your power, they take your power, they take your money. Worse, they take your platform. Or they situate you in situations where your platform can't get out. So your truth, which is very valuable, doesn't reach the multitudes of the people. Is that the same thing that's happening in Sudan? Yes. If you go through Instagram, you'll see people talking about Sudan, but it's not like talking about Gaza. You know, you can say pound for pound. You know, the difference is, again, Gaza gets more attention when you're talking about Palestinians against Jews, right? Sudan, you're talking about Sudanese fighting Sudanese. So it's just like it's a bunch of Africans killing a bunch of Africans. Let's just get to the fact. So look, I'm gonna bounce. I gotta get my laundry. That's probably too real for you. When you travel, you gotta have clean drawers. So I'm looking to go get my laundry. I hope do that homework on Sudan. I did some homework on Sudan. I was like, wow. Because if we start digging deep enough, you're going to find foreign policies influence this situation and continue to do so. Um, there's implications of Arab countries that are involved, and I can't say it is or it's not. But I will do my homework, and I do feel that interference is there because, again, when people have these I want to say incestuous relationships, it's consuming, right? Those relationships are consuming. And the only way it can be fed and stay relevant is that it takes up more and more cognitive surplus. It takes up more and more lives. It takes up more and more hope. It takes up more and more freedom. It takes up more and more justice so that it becomes rationalized as normal. So listen, that's the show today. Y'all been great. I'll see you in a little bit. Inshallah, I'll be back in the States on Wednesday and we will have a live show. I'll make sure I will put something up on the internet saying a live show. But until then, keep the peace. Make your du'as, not just for Gaza, make it for Sudan, also make it for the Congo, also make it for Uganda, also make it for the United States. All right. All right. About out of here. I'm gonna free brother Sammy, who was arrested in California, man. Get out of that ICE detention center. Yeah. Sammy and me. Make sure you holler and make the for him. ICE, a militarized version of the police, arrested his brother on the way to the airport. I'm not selling you wolf tickets. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It's happening. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shout out.